Well, Pakistan's military establishment has spent years projecting an image of absolute control over Balochistan. But today, that image is facing one of its biggest tests. Bridges are being knocked out, highways are being blocked, transport routes are being disrupted, and the Baloch Liberation Army is increasingly demonstrating that it can strike multiple points across the province and then disappear before Pakistan's security machinery can actually regain control. And now, the Quetta-Karachi highway itself has been disrupted. Just think about what that actually means. This is not merely an attack on a military checkpost, this is an attack on one of the arteries connecting Balochistan with Pakistan's economic hub Karachi. The N25 runs from Karachi through Quetta towards the Chaman border and is one of the province's principal road link. So the question is the BLA simply carrying out another series of attacks, or it has developed a strategy designed to stretch Pakistan's military across an entire province? Because what we are witnessing increasingly looks like a war of pressure, paralysis, and most importantly, a war of attrition. And if you stay with us till the end in this edition of From the News Desk, we will explain how the BLA's coordinated strategy is targeting not just Pakistan Army personnel, but creating an environment that makes very tough for the Pakistan security establishment to actually recover. Well, the latest development is particularly embarrassing for Islamabad. A key bridge on the highway connecting the Quetta region with Karachi has reportedly been destroyed, disrupting traffic and leaving passengers stranded. In fact, reports circulating from the region describe the highway network coming under renewed pressure from the BLA operation, and importance of this cannot be overstated. Remember, the Karachi-Quetta route is not just a road used by ordinary passengers. It is a crucial transportation corridor linking provincial capital with Karachi, Pakistan's commercial center. And when such a route is blocked, the impact immediately spreads beyond the battlefield. Trucks cannot move normally, commercial activities are disrupted, security forces have to divert it to protect transport corridors, and the Pakistani state is forced to spend more resources simply keeping basic connectivity alive. Well, that is precisely what makes the BLA strategy so problematic for Islamabad. The group does not necessarily need to capture and permanently hold a major Pakistani city. It can instead create temporary zones of disruption. Block the highway, destroy a bridge, attack a security post, target a convoy, then move elsewhere. Well, the result is that Pakistan's security apparatus is forced to respond everywhere simultaneously. And that is a very different challenge from fighting rebels concentrated in one fixed location. Now, the real concern for Pakistan is the apparent coordination behind these attacks. Balochistan has witnessed large-scale simultaneous operations before. Like in January 2026, attacks were reported across numerous districts including Quetta, Gadwar, Mastang, Nuski, Pashni and Kharan areas. Pakistani officials described a broad campaign involving attacks on police stations, paramilitary positions and government installation. Well, that history matters because it shows the evolution of the threat. Well, it seems the BLA's objective is not simply to inflict casualties. It is increasingly trying to overload the Pakistani security system. Just imagine the challenge for a Pakistani general. One report comes in from a highway, another comes from a bridge, then there is an attack on a police facility, another security convoy comes under fire somewhere else. And at the very same time, critical infrastructure requires protection. Well, the military has to decide where to send its men first. Well, that is the advantage of coordinated asymmetric warfare. Well, the BLA does not have to match Pakistani army tank for tank, aircraft to aircraft and even soldier to soldier. It simply has to create more security problems than the state can effectively handle. And Balochistan, with its enormous geographical expanse and difficult terrain, is particularly suited for this kind of warfare. For Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir and the wider military establishment, this is where the problem becomes particularly serious. Well, Pakistan has enormous conventional military capabilities. It has fighter aircraft, it has attack helicopters, it has drone, artillery, armored vehicles, and extensive intelligence infrastructure. But the BLA is not asking the Pakistani army to fight the kind of war for which those capabilities were primarily designed. Instead, it is forcing Pakistan to defend hundreds of kilometers of roads, bridges, checkpoints, installations, and transport routes. Well, mind you, that is expensive, and more importantly, it is very exhausting for such a force. Well, Pakistan can announce successful counter-terror operations and claim that militants have been eliminated. Remember, Pakistani security forces have repeatedly conducted operations across Balochistan. But if attacks continue returning, the fundamental problem remains. Well, this is why describing the BLA as simply a collection of militants would underestimate the challenge. And its effectiveness increasingly comes from its ability to exploit geography, mobility, and the element of surprise. And when such an organization can temporarily disrupt a major national highway, the psychological effect may be almost as important as the physical damage. Because suddenly, the question becomes, who controls the road, the government, or the BLA? Well, that is a devastating question for any state that wants to project authority. Well, Pakistan establishment can deploy troops after an attack, it can reopen a road, it can repair a bridge, it can also launch a military operation. But if the BLA can return days or even weeks later and repeat the same cycle, then the state remains trapped in a costly game of reaction. And that is why the BLA campaign has become the biggest nightmare for Pakistan's security establishment. Now, BLA's strategy becomes even more significant when viewed through the economic importance of Balochistan. The province is rich in natural resources and occupies a strategically important position connecting Pakistan with Iran, Afghanistan, and the Arabian Sea. Well, it is also central to China-backed infrastructure ambitions of Pakistan. Well, that makes road, mineral transportation routes, and other infrastructure strategically important far beyond Balochistan itself. In fact, the BLA has previously announced campaign targeting highway and minerals carrying vehicles, explicitly framing part of its strategy around disrupting economic activity. And such campaigns create a nightmare scenario for Islamabad as well as for Rawalpindi. Pakistan needs Balochistan's mineral wealth, it needs road to transport those resources, it needs infrastructure to attract investment, it needs Chinese projects to remain secure. And most importantly, it needs the Pakistani army to convince both domestic and foreign audience that the province remains under state control. But every highway blockade, every destroyed bridge, and every attack on a convoy sends the very opposite message. It says the state may possess overwhelming military power, but it is struggling to guarantee security across the territory it claims to control. And that is the larger story behind the latest disruption of the Quetta-Karachi route. This is not simply about one bridge, it is about whether Pakistan can keep its own strategic arteries open. Like we mentioned earlier, the BLA does not need to defeat the Pakistan army in a conventional battle. It only needs to keep forcing Pakistan to deploy more troops, guard more roads, protect more infrastructure, and respond to more such attacks. Well, that is the logic of attrition. And if the BLA can sustain this pressure, then Balochistan will remain a security crisis that Pakistan cannot simply bomb, suppress, or declare finished. Well, for the Pakistan establishment, this is therefore no longer an emerging nightmare. It is already the biggest nightmare because the real danger is not that the BLA will suddenly defeat Pakistani military. The real danger is something subtler and potentially far more damaging. That Pakistan may continue possessing one of the region's most powerful militaries while simultaneously finding it increasingly difficult to guarantee the security of its own roads, bridges, and economic corridors. And when that happens, the battle is no longer just about territory. It becomes a battle over the credibility of the Pakistani state itself. Well, with that, it's a wrap on today's edition of From the News Desk. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm Yash Goyal signing off for Times Now Digital. Until next time, take care and keep watching this space for more such videos.